that. And thank you for the Family Education Trust for inviting me, and thank you all for giving me a very warm welcome to Northern Ireland. This is only my second time here, and I'm absolutely loving it so far. I'm staying in Bangor, so I am. Trying to pick up the lingo there too. That video, though, I mean, what are we doing to our children? I don't know whether to be upset or angry or a mixture of both, but it's infuriating. I'm not going to talk about the legalities. I think Callum is far more of an expert on that kind of stuff than I am. I want to talk about the root of the problem, because I think we spend too much time firefighting. We don't ever get to the cause. So that's what I'd like to address tonight. But before I do, I've got one slight criticism. We have to adjust our language. These are not puberty blockers. We're not blocking puberty. These are the drugs that we give to paedophiles. This is chemical castration. We're castrating our young people, our children. So we've got to be upfront with the language that we use. We can't play their game. I'm not a fan of audience participation, but I do want to get you to raise your hands if you believe that parents should have a right to know what their children are being taught in school. Okay, keep your hands up if you think parents do have a right to know. All right, thank you very much. They should, but they do not. I'll get to the whys in a moment, but it's important for us to first recognize how we got here. So it used to be understood that parents' number one job was to educate their children, to raise their children. And that meant education in both terms of knowledge and understanding, but also in terms of values, standards, expectations, and faith. So parents have one job, to raise children, to educate children. Until 5 minutes ago, that was. We used to recognize that children are a gift from God, that parents are blessed with children, and that it's parents' duty to look after children. And schools were set up to assist parents. Knowledgeable experts provide tutorage to ensure that the next generation learns from the previous. It is, or it was, a great system. However, somewhere along the way, we forgot that schools are supposed to be supplementary, to provide assistance to parents. And we started thinking of schools as being an alternative to parenting. We essentially handed our children over to the state. Now, I used to work in education, as Callum pointed out. I've been a classroom teacher, head of department, assistant principal, a governor, director of free schools, consultant for the Department of Education, and I loved it. Education is my passion. But in all of that time, I've observed the slippery slope in practice, firsthand. Parents hand their children over for 7 to 8 hours a day and expect results in return. The whole process has become transactional. Now, as a society, we've started asking questions like, why are children leaving school without being able to read? Which is a concern, of course, but before pointing fingers out at schools, we should be returning them back inwards. We should be asking parents, why are you not reading with your children? It's neglect, quite frankly. People I know and love refuse to potty train their children because it's hard work. Who wants to do the dirty work? Send them off to nursery school, they'll do it for them. It shouldn't be a service that schools provide. They should tell parents, take your child back, take your child home, bring them back to school when they can use the loo or the toilet. I mean, this is a sure sign of social decay. It used to be said that it takes a community to raise a child. And when I was growing up, I knew the name of my local Bobby. I knew that if I messed around in the neighborhood, my neighbors would pull me up on it. Maybe they'd tell my parents, maybe they wouldn't. I knew that if I got in trouble at school, I would be getting in more trouble when I got home. And that wasn't that long ago, believe it or not. But much of that is gone. The community is dead in most of our cities. We don't even know our neighbors, so most of them are never going to pull our children up. We don't think twice about telling a naughty child off that we see in the street or around us in a shopping center. We wouldn't dare. We'd probably be afraid of getting stabbed these days. But at the very least, we'd be getting an earful from an angry, ungrateful parent. As for the relationship between school and home, parents are far more likely to side with their bratty child, to put it frankly, their misbehaving child, than they are to side with the school or the teacher, the person trying to educate them. There's so little collaboration. The education system cannot continue to function in this way. It's impossible to impart knowledge on an unruly class. It doesn't matter how knowledgeable the teachers are, it doesn't matter how fancy the resources are, how great the school is. If there's no behavior for learning, there's no learning taking place. And that's why after safeguarding, strong discipline should be a school's top priority, followed then by the curriculum. And many schools today are putting the curriculum first. This is a mistake. Children are not learning because they're not prepared to learn. They're not made to behave. So neither schools nor parents are disciplining children anymore. So we have an entire generation of unruly, entitled brats. But it's not their fault, it's ours. We owe them better than this. And a lot of it comes from a utilitarian approach to education. At some point, massively emphasized under Tony Blair, but certainly didn't start with him, we began to see school as a way to get into university, and university as a way to get a good job. But that's a falsehood. Not every child is suited to higher education. Some children are more suited to sport, some to more technical vocations, some, of course, to further academia. But it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. The idea that all pupils should head to university has meant that universities are flooded with students incapable of meeting the expectations. Therefore, the expectations get lowered. Universities have to cater to all types of students, thus flooding the market with meaningless degrees, gender studies, contemporary art, you name it, that won't provide the student with a good job when they leave, but it will provide them with decades worth of debt. All we've done is water down the quality of degrees, so no one wins. But again, this is our fault. We, as a society, look down upon vocational skills. Plumbers, builders, manual labourers, the people that keep our society running, they should be held to a higher regard. They're the backbone of our nation. But instead, we want everyone to be lawyers, doctors, and teachers. But even they're not respected properly anymore. I tend to find that adults favour reality TV stars and young people favour YouTubers. We've become a society obsessed with celebrity culture, putting people on pedestals where they don't belong, and it's a great shame. But it's something that we can learn from. These are all easy fixes. Parents need to get back to reading to their children and not palming them off to school to do the parenting for them. Neighbours need to look out for each other. Schools need to get strict to stamp out bad behaviour and to stop encouraging everyone to go to university. And we all need to stop watching rubbish on TV and on YouTube and get back to modelling good behaviour, reading a book with a child. Children are far less likely to pick up a book if they've never seen an adult do so. But the missing element, of course, is faith. The Christian faith provides answers to all of these problems. We're taught that marriage is between one man and one woman, a joining of two into one, not just for the good of each other, but for the greater good of the community. Married couples have the potential to be blessed with children for the family, but also for the community. Of course, also for the worship of God. When our focus is on God, we're less likely to be easily attracted by worldly figures. When we celebrate the lives of the saints, we're not venerating silly reality TV stars. So a lack of faith, I would say, is why we're seeing many of these issues and why the West is becoming increasingly unrecognizable. If you wanted to destroy the West, to destroy our way of life, to break down Western society and rebuild it in your own image, as the Marxists tend to want to do, you'd attack faith and you'd attack family. The West is founded on Christian principles, so if you knock down the pillar of faith, the whole thing starts to crumble. Likewise, the family is the first community that we all belong to. It's the basis for every other community, local or national. So destroy the family, and you destroy the nation. And the Marxists, I would say, have done just that. I'm sure most of you have heard of the Frankfurt School, a group of commies who met up around 100 years ago now with the sole purpose of destroying the capitalist West to promote communism. They believed that if they infiltrated key institutions like healthcare, education, and academia, and the civil service, that they wouldn't need to take over governments. They wouldn't need a war, and they wouldn't need a coup d'etat. We'd all surrender our values piece by piece. The diversity, inclusion, and equality agenda is a prime example of that at play. You see it everywhere you look. The same with the LGBT lobby. They've both infiltrated every walk of life. Black Lives Matter as well. All these hard left groups share an ideology. They're all neo-Marxists. And this is why you see them with the same slogans. Smash heteronormativity. Destroy the patriarchy. Diversity is our strength. And they're all lies. But then they call truth lies, and they call lies the truth. They warp our reality enough to make people feel confused, tired, and belittled. Things that we took for granted a few moments ago suddenly become bigoted, transphobic, homophobic, racist, xenophobic. Unless we subscribe to their ideology, we are the bad people. And it's tyranny. They claim to be oppressed, yet they attempt to oppress the rest of us. Let's take a look at a few of these. Smash heteronormativity. A particularly weird one, because without heteronormativity, we cease to exist as a species. This is without even passing any judgment on alternative lifestyles. But if we do not maintain a normative of marriage and families, if we promote the unnatural as natural, we die out. Destroy the patriarchy. Sinister. Because it's an overt attack on God. God the Father is the ultimate patriarch. He teaches us how to provide and protect. He teaches us that men and women are equal in terms of dignity and worth, but not equal in the sense of being the same. We have different roles in family, in society, in life, and that's a good thing. So destroying the patriarchy turns women into men and men into women. It breaks down the norms of society, leaving men effeminate and unable to provide and protect for their family or for the nation. And it tells women that in order to have any value in society, they need to become just like men, instead of telling the truth that being a mother is the most blessed of vocations and the one that we cannot do without. And as for diversity being our strength, well, there are some circumstances where that might be true. For example, diversity of thought and opinion can be a good thing. It would have been a good thing throughout COVID, when there was only one approved narrative allowed. But that's not the type of diversity that they mean, and we all know that. What they mean is superficial variety, usually darker skin color. What they mean is the things about ourselves that we cannot change, our immutable characteristics, they need to be more diverse. The unimportant things. But also some important things, such as culture. To be diverse in these areas means adding something by removing something else. So to be diverse in the media means removing white people, adding more black people. Being diverse at school means teaching less British history and teaching more world history. This is a zero-sum game. We only have so many seats on the sofa. We only have so many lessons in a day. You cannot add something without removing something. So diversity is an erasure. And it wouldn't be a problem if these were just fringe groups, but they're not. They are everywhere. The hard left neo-Marxists have managed to convince us that children do not belong to God. They don't even belong to parents, but they belong to the state. And this, for the most part, has been under a so-called conservative government. They're the ones who pushed through this despicable RSE curriculum, relationship and sexual education, which essentially does take sex education down from secondary school into primary schools. It pushes what I would call DIE, diversity, inclusion, and equality. Things have quickly moved from children need to learn about different relationship types to children as young as 5 being taught masturbation, oral sex, anal sex, and all kinds of inappropriate degeneracy. The question of whether this is age appropriate is no longer being asked. All of this would have been considered a safeguarding concern a couple of years ago, but now their primary concern is indoctrinating young people to be more diverse, more inclusive, more equitable. And as we heard a moment ago, parents used to have a right to remove their children from sex education. This right has been eroded with the introduction of RSE. Technically, parents can still remove children from the sex ed part, but not from the relationship part. That's obligatory. But in reality, it doesn't work because the two are taught in tandem. And worse than that, parents don't know what's being taught or when. And as I started out by saying, they no longer have the right to that information. A friend of mine, some of you might know, Claire Page, recently filed a case with the Information Commissioner's Office because her child's school refused to share with her what was being taught in her child's lesson. As bizarre as that sounds, it's happening everywhere. So few parents are checking And whenever I talk about this issue publicly, people always say, "Oh, not in my child's school," as if to imply that I'm making it up or I'm blowing it out of proportion. But when I push back, I quickly figure that they haven't actually checked. They just assume. And what's happening is they're assuming that if their child is being taught something outrageous, their child will come home and tell them. But their child doesn't see it as outrageous because it's been drip-fed all through their lives, and it's everywhere they look. So to them, it's just normal. It doesn't stand out to them as it would to us. But anyway, Claire filed a report with the ICO, and we've just learned that she lost her case. She filed a Tier 1 tribunal appeal against the ICO. She lost that too. And the judge has decided that the lesson resources should remain a secret. So here we have a judge who's prioritized the commercial interests of an external RSE provider over children's welfare. And what's frustrating about that is that the judge agreed that the resources were controversial, teaching practices and ideas that are worthy of public scrutiny, but still ruled that the company's privacy interests outweighed the parent's right to know what their child is being taught. Making matters worse than that, the judge ruled that some of the materials would be, and I quote, "not suitable for children," and concluded that much of it was intro-activist research. I've seen some of the materials. Orgasm O'Clock, Babe's Guide to Sex Toys, Erotica and Pornography, Suction, Minimum Effort, Maximum Payoff, Magic Wands, Fun for the Whole Family, What Can We Learn from Queer Sex, The Problem with Heteronormativity. It's awful, it's abhorrent, completely age inappropriate, safeguarding concerns all around. And again, we see those words, the problem with heteronormativity. There's no problem with heteronormativity. There's a great strength in marriage, the traditional nuclear family. It's natural, it's wholesome, it's good. But can you imagine if I started talking about or releasing RSE resources that said the problem with homosexuality? It'd never get off the ground. They'd be outraged. They'd be trying to cancel me, if not imprison me. There's no way that schools would teach that. So why are we allowing them to teach this filth? And it's not that people aren't standing up. I know there are many good people in this room who are standing up. It's the problem. The problem is that other people are blissfully unaware. So our job as ground soldiers is to push back, of course it is, to get these horrid external resources out of schools, to hold the DFE and schools to account. But more than that, our job is to spread awareness. It's to encourage parents to ask questions, get them to inquire about what their child is learning. Our job as good citizens is to encourage parents to start parenting again. And what a sad indictment that is. But it is an achievable goal. I honestly believe that if most parents were aware of what's being taught in schools and how bad things have gotten, they would be up in arms. And of course, most schools aren't run by activists. They don't have overtly LGBTQ++ agendas. The reason that they're going for these outside resources, these overtly political external agencies, is because they've been told by our governments to teach this RSE rubbish, but they haven't been told how. Teachers are not equipped for this. They're not trained in RSE. I got into teaching because I love computer science. Most teachers have an area of expertise, and that area of expertise is very rarely sex toys, oral and anal sex, or at least I'd hope not. So let's get this filth out of schools. And my challenge to all of you, if you're parents, find out what's being taught in your child's RSE lessons. If you have friends or relatives who are parents, challenge them to find out what's being taught in their child's school. Together, we can spread the word and raise awareness to get this mess out of kids' classrooms. So let's make schools wholesome again. And to the groomers, otherwise known as the external agencies, and to the activists infiltrating the education system because they know up until now they've been able to get away with it, we must send them a clear message: leave our kids alone.
Well, thank you very much, Calvin. And as promised, we will give 5 minutes for questions on the things Calvin has raised. And please, We're a good number of people here, so please do keep it to a question rather than a statement to allow a few people to get an opportunity. But if you raise your hand, Jim Russell has a roving mic and he'll come to you. So this lady first, wait till the microphone comes.
Thank you. Thank you, Jim. It is a wee bit of a statement, but it is a question. A lot of the leaders that are coming out through all these areas that you've talked about have been formed by the World Economic Forum. Is there something that we can do that counteracts that?
I suppose, yeah. So I went out to Davos this year. I was at the World Economic Forum and letting them know that we're onto them. They were so cozy. What was surprising to me, actually being there in Davos, was that it was just open. I could talk to anyone. I spent 20 minutes with Greta Thunberg. You know, we saw the CEO of Pfizer and AstraZeneca. We cornered them on the streets and asked them questions. They're not expecting people to turn up. They are so cozy amongst themselves, just repeating their own ideologies back at each other, verifying each other, validating each other, that we can, first of all, we can disrupt Davos. And whether it's turning up in person or writing about it, publicizing it, letting people know what the World Economic Forum is, putting it all out there. But secondly, we can spread the message to people who are not yet awake. So we can let people know who Klaus Schwab is. Give them a copy of his book. It's all out there. I mean, these aren't conspiracies. The new industrial age is his book. He outlines his plan for all of us. We can, you know, the WHO is another one in that I'm sure you've all seen this week, they're pushing for abortion to be legalized by all what they call member states. I don't believe I'm in a member state of the WHO. I don't believe in a one world government, but they're saying that abortion should be legalized up until birth.
It is here.
Which is just, you know.
Sorry, the question was just that they are forming leaders to have this ideology.
Yes, but they're only turning up because they think they're safe, is what I'm trying to get at. So look at the sound people that we elected in the last election. The first thing they did is went straight out there to Davos to meet the WF. If we let them know we're onto them and we're not approving of it and we don't want to elect people that are members of the WF, they'll stop going. There's an alternative launching this year called ARC, which Jordan Peterson is involved with, a lot of sound people are involved with, to get people all around the world, intellectuals, academics, together to provide a wholesome Christian alternative to what the WF are doing.
Thank you. There's a question at the far back.
Just thank you to tonight's organisers and speakers. I'm a primary school principal in Belfast, and this maybe isn't a question. Sorry, Callum. It's more of an advertisement. Can I just point out to the good folks in this room that the Board of Governors are going to be reconstituted at the end of this year, December and January. And whilst perhaps you're not a parent, and so that avenue of being a Board of Governor is close to you, you can register your name with the Education Authority, and you can say that you would like to serve as a governor on a local school. You will be given 3 opportunities when an opportunity arises in a local school. You've got 3 opportunities to say yes. You can say no to some and yes to one. But as a principal and as a father of 5 kids, can I just say that the influence that you can make to a school and the support that you can give to a principal, and we're still very blessed in Northern Ireland that we have so many Christian teachers, primary, secondary, nursery, you name it. And I always find it a very sad thing that there isn't more. Don't leave it to your clergy just to be on the Board of Governors. Everybody in this room could be a member of a Board of Governors through registering your interest online with the Education Authority, and they will get in touch with you with the opportunities that will come up. And you could really make a really excellent and godly difference in your local school and help keep some of this stuff out because school leaders can't do it themselves.
Very sound advice. Thank you. Sound.
Thank you. Yes, we'll have a question at the far side as well.
You would be at the very far end, wouldn't you? Can I read it? The floor is yours.
Hello, I used to be a teacher, and I do recognise within the school that teachers also have different points of view and different values. But I also want to say that parents are the most important people in society, and we must have shared education, which means that I believe that RSE should be taken out of schools and given to parents, and that would solve the whole problem. And transgenderism and also should be taken out of schools and given to the medical authorities and the parents. So RSE out. That's the only way we are going to protect our children.
You are absolutely right. The most worrying thing about that for me is when I speak to my former peers, when I speak to teachers and I say, we need to get RSE out of schools, they say, why? And I say, well, because the values should be passed on from parents, not from school. We don't want the state's values, we want parents' values. And they say, but what if the parents have the wrong values? Which tells you everything you need to know, doesn't it, really?
Well, it's almost a seeing of the children as the property of the state. And that is some of the line of thinking that has come out from our Human Rights Commission just yesterday, and also behind the moves by Connie Egan and other politicians to produce a private member's bill. Okay, I think we've time for one more question. Yes, the lady there. The microphone will come to you. And then we'll take a short break.
Thank you. You have told us there how, as parents, we really don't have the right to know what is being taught. So I'm a wee bit shocked, but thankfully my daughter's talky, which is helpful. Do I have the right here in Northern Ireland to withdraw my child from those lessons, or does that leave me in a horrific place? Do I need to make up some other excuse?
Sorry, I'll answer that.
Just the sex ed part, right?
Well, no, it's different in Northern Ireland.
Okay.
So at the present time, parents can withdraw their children. So at the present time, primary schools are not required to teach sex or relationships education at all. Post-primary schools are required to have an RSE policy that should be within the ethos of the school, should be agreed by the governors, probably should be in consultation with parents, but parents still have a right of withdrawal from that. And parents can also reasonably ask the school what outside organisations are being invited in, what books and materials are being used with your children. And if parents do that, it does help to show the level of concern to perhaps teachers that maybe want to hold the line, are under pressure not to. So.